dear friend Benjamin Dixon has been patiently waiting because we started the show a little late today. But you don't know that because it just aired at the normal time for you. Benjamin Dixon is, of course, the host of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show and podcast.
I was
Ben,
getting ready to say good morning, good afternoon, or good
I
evening,
know.
depending on when they're listening and watching. How are you,
Well,
Nomiki?
we're posting this at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're giving
There
away our
it is.
trade secrets here. You know how it is. It's been a couple of weeks. I'm sorry, Ben. I've been on the road, so it's been a little chaotic when you're on the West Coast, getting up super
Mm.
early for your
It
morning show.
is, yes,
But
please. When you're on
next
the
week we're
West
back.
Coast, please don't try to come on.
But it air. I mean, that's what's interesting about this, though. I think your show's great because it is a morning show. Before we get to what we want to talk about, can you talk about like why you focused on the morning time? Like what does that represent to you?
I was really thinking about that earlier today because I'm not a morning person at all. I've had to take a lot of discipline to make myself a morning person, and my team has been a part of that. But it's something that I've heard you say a couple of times, Nomiki. It starts our day intentionally, right? We set the mode for the day, and we get an opportunity to get what's going on by the time that people get to work or they're listening, wherever they're listening, they're already filled in on what's happening, and we get to set the tone, right? So we break the news to them, but because we're in a morning show format, we have an excuse to actually enjoy ourselves and not have to just always be so serious because this work is very serious work.
I hear you, and that's where the previous conversation we had with Matthew and talking about the New Age movement. I mean, one of some of the good things I've pulled from that, and I think it's sort of church. Churches membership enrollment is in decline right now, and I think a lot of folks have kind of been looking for another space
Mm,
to connect with something bigger.
yeah,
But it can always be channeled just like churches can be channeled in the wrong way. But what I
that's
did
right.
love about that community was this idea of intent. And
Mm,
I always say, what is your intention? What is your intention when you're doing this? What is your intention when you're a host on TV? I mean, you and I
yeah,
both know there are a lot of folks who are in this space that have different intentions. So
yeah.
that's what I really love about your show, is
Thank
that
you.
aspect.
Thank you.
Speaking of intent, what is President Biden's intention right now? What is going on? Um, this is a guy who is like teasing. It's like I saw someone tweet this. It's like he's teasing an album, but we don't know if the album's actually going to come. And the
Right.
album is, of course, eliminating student debt, which he has the power to do, and he really doesn't lose anything by taking his pen out and eliminating it. I'm gonna think, hopefully, I'm not sure if this is correct. Maybe I'm giving him a little bit too much credit. I'm like, you know what? He's going to drop this in like October, right
Mm,
before
hmm.
midterms or right when
Hmm.
people get their early ballots, uh, or not, because he also has a track record of doing that. Ben, what are your thoughts? You think we're going to get there?
I think it's one of those things, Nomiki. I'm definitely with you. I would love for him to cancel it now, but I do think politically it's more likely he'll cancel it closer to the election. I fully expect him to cancel it at this point because it would be political malpractice for him to have set up this conversation after so many years of him not doing anything on it. So I'm really with you. Like, what are we doing here? If you're trying to just simply play with our emotions, then you're doing a great job. But if you're really going to cancel it, then you know, let's one do it because that's going to be the best thing for the economy and for so many millions of Americans. But then two, it's also the best thing politically. So yeah, run up the scoreboard and use it to make sure that we don't get shellacked in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, he's losing young people. He's losing. I mean, not that he ever really carried that much,
Right.
but it isn't. It's important. I mean, he barely won the election, and as less so the margins. I mean, granted, he won the right states, but the margins were much smaller than that between Trump and Hillary Clinton. And we
Mm,
see how they're going to bat in places like Georgia and Arizona, Georgia, where you are, and Arizona, where
right.
I am right now, to make sure that this next time around, there isn't that margin. Now, this could transform. This could mobilize, excite, and urge young people to show up and say, all right, you're doing it. You're not doing everything, but you're doing something." And I guess like with Obama, it was Obamacare, right? But Obamacare was a moderate neoliberal approach to healthcare, and that's why we're still
Right.
fighting for Medicare for all. But with this type of debt, these federal loans in particular, which he has the sole power over, and they literally there's nobody immediately that has anything to lose from doing this. I mean, it's not like there are other industries involved that are lobbying him. Maybe they'll be annoyed because it's going to start a trend. I'm sure conservatives don't want to teach people to think that debt is not real. Um,
Mm.
but but I still think, like, even these other industries, these private loans and the banks, right? I still think that they might say, "Oh, great, now they can pay my loans." Even though they're making money off of interest, they're not making any money if no one's paying those loans,
That's
because
right.
now it's freed up some money for folks to pay those loans, and simultaneously, landlords, people who are looking for money right now.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Is this, do I just have a bad assessment of
Well, no, no. I
economics?
mean, you wouldn't. You're not wrong if you were if the people involved were normal human beings, right? Because that's just the normal thing to do, right? If you free up this money, this is money that's going to go and stimulate the economy anywhere and everywhere else, including landlords. But this is not the kind of system we operate in. We have a system that is designed to grind us into a pulp, into dust,
Mm.
and take our last dime, not just our last dollar, but our last penny. And when that's not enough, they'll in a normal system, yeah, free up this debt, and you absolutely know it's going to stimulate the economy.
So do you think that if he does clear out this debt, some of you've mentioned this before, or one of your patrons, excuse me, had mentioned that some of these student loans, these federal student loans, have been bought privately. I assume through consolidation. I'm not entirely sure, but um, do you think it'll actually impact enough? I've seen statistics. It's usually conservatives, to be fair, but they're putting out statistics from, like, the Heritage Foundation saying even if this were to happen, it's really not going to stimulate the economy that much.
Right. Well, I mean, of course they're going to say that, right? They want us to believe that the best way to stimulate the economy is to cut taxes on the rich. We're still waiting on that to trickle down for the last
Yeah.
40 years, right? But whether or not, to what extent it's going to, how much total debt can he cancel out of the 4 point, I believe, 2 trillion, somewhere near there, of student loan debt? How much can Joe Biden himself personally cancel? And I think that will determine how many people are going to be celebrating. I mean, we want him to cancel, to be able to cancel all 4 trillion of it. But like you said, one of our patrons mentioned some of these have already been sold off into commodities, right? So we're at a stage where mortgage back, we're at a stage where they're doing with student loans what they
Mm.
did with mortgage backed securities. So we all know how that ended.
That's a great point, and I think we're living it. I don't think people even necessarily understand that so much of our economy is affected, like we said at the beginning, by the fact that people have to pay their student loans right away. And not to mention how many folks didn't even get degrees out of it
Right.
because, the student loans may have only covered so much,
Yeah.
or life got in the way, or, there's a million reasons why people don't fulfill their degrees and aren't able to go back. We don't live in a society where it makes it easy for folks to get education, um, to have the time to do that, because you have to work. Many people have to work at the same time or have
Yeah.
families. And I really hope that Biden is thinking about these things, because as we've seen in the last couple of years, the economy collapsing through a pandemic has revealed all of the corners of the
Mm.
dark corners of our economic system. Um, Anyways, I wanted to bring this up with you just because I do think it's a key part of the election
Mhm.
going into
Absolutely.
2022. But we're now starting, the primaries are starting up. People are getting their ballots in many states across this country right now. Democratic primaries, not everybody, but it's starting to heat up. And this is just after most communities the redistricting has been announced.
Mm.
What's the state of Georgia right now? Because I know Georgia's been in a lot of back and forth with.
Right. No, it's Georgia and the Southeast, any of the states that you see Republican leadership and Republican Congresses and houses, we've seen redistricting absolutely demolish representation. If you look over in the state of Florida, um, quite a bit of representation has been taken away, signed out by Ron DeSantis, and there's state senators and state congresspeople over there fighting their best to try to keep some sense of I don't even want to call it balance, because we saw for years the Republican Party all across the South were making moves to make, not only make voting more difficult, but structurally just making it, creating impediments to democracy in general. And we're seeing that in the state of Georgia as well as Florida, particularly around the redistricting.
Um, they've been fighting redistricting, they've been fighting the lines, they've been fighting the voting laws, they've been, these culture wars are popping up. They're taking on school boards in the Southeast. They're trying to keep voters down and stopping money from flowing in some of these laws as well. Do you think that the energy is where it needs to be in Georgia? And I say that because Georgia, hasn't waited for the Democratic Party to swoop in and help them organize. Georgia
Mm,
Democrats have been doing it uh, for the last few years on their own, and thank God, because
that's
we
right.
have 2 senators now.
Right.
Um, do you think that energy's still there? Did the organizing stop?
Oh no, 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 no. The organizing kept going. I mean, the people took it into their own hands. If it was left up to the Democratic Party, we would not have the control of the Senate that they have now. Um, the organizers took up 2020 on their own shoulders and knocking on every door. They weren't out there for a particular Democratic candidate. They were out there for democracy.
Mm.
That didn't stop. You know, the text messages, they decreased. Thank goodness we used to get like 18 text messages a day. We're just getting one a day, but they never stop, right? They continue communicating with us, keeping those channels open, and looking forward to them being active and thriving for the next election.
All right, before we go, I'm going to talk about this with David Dole in the next half, but I got to ask you because you've always had hot takes on this man, Elon Musk. What's your take on his champion? He's the champion for free speech now.
Yeah.
You think he's going to let you speak all you want?
Oh no, I'm not speaking on Twitter anymore.
Oh.
I don't give sociopaths free data. Now my account will stay open, and we'll be pushing through updates and live streams and retweets, so it'll be active. But I just haven't come to terms with whether or not I'm going to actively give Lex Luthor my data. Lex Luthor with hair plugs, that is. But last but not least, he certainly is not a paragon of free speech. We definitely know who Elon Musk is, and I think it is to be honest with you, it is. And I think it is to be honest with you, it is it's a sad day for democracy. Twitter was not perfect, but Twitter was a free for all, except for psychopaths, people who really want to threaten or harm you, like Donald Trump. But it was a free for all for people. Whoever had something good to say, you could say it and find your way to the top of the algorithm. We all know that's going to change when Elon Musk gets control over it, simply by virtue of how many people, how many Republicans and conservatives are celebrating it as their own
Mm-hmm.
personal victory.
Mm-hmm. No, it
Yeah.
is. I saw someone post something about how the board of Twitter, much of the board of Twitter, was giving to basically neoliberal Democratic candidates like Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, but they're like using that as an alternative. And I'm saying the voices that I've seen get quieter and quieter on Twitter, not that they're not speaking, they're just not in my face, are the progressives.
That's right.
And I know we're talking about this like Lex Luthor, but Twitter's not been really a well cultivated space for the last couple of years, basically since I'd say Bernie Sanders like took the world by storm. We've seen algorithms shift that have gotten folks shadow banned for saying certain things, and shocker, it's like people of color and women, and of course, if you've taken on unions, or I mean, if you're a
Mhm.
union,
Yeah,
taking on big companies, a
that's
lot of
right.
folks have been silenced, and I don't think one side's going to win in this, meaning neoliberals or conservatives. But I don't know. Where do you see it going at the end of the day?
I think this is their best play, Nomiki. If you ask me what I really believe, I believe that the global pan reactionary movement has shot its load. They've given us their very best shot. They've gotten their war in Ukraine. And I say that tongue in cheek because it's been a tragedy there, right? They've gotten their media platforms. They're going to get their Donald Trump back on social media. They're winning. Um, but it's not because they actually are going to win in the end. They've thrown billions of dollars at this. I mean, they've thrown everything. They're putting their personal wealth into it. They're putting their lives on the line. They're going to January 6th. Some of them are so convicted about it that they kill themselves afterwards, right? They are throwing everything that they have on the table globally, and I still think that they're going to lose.
God willing, or whoever you pray to.
Universe, God, whoever, they're going to lose.
Pick your cult leader, as we discussed in our last segment. All right, Benjamin Dixon, always a pleasure. Solidarity Wednesdays.
Pleasure is mine.
Go check out Benjamin Dixon Morning Show on all the platforms. It's an amazing show. It really sets the intention for the day. So if you can watch it in the morning, even if you're on the West Coast, you can watch it later, your morning. Go check it out.
Morning. Exactly. Thank you so much, Nomiki.
Patrons have really been the crux of the show, and we're so grateful to you. So if you are not a patron already, go join us at patreon.com/the Nomiki Show if you want to learn more. And there's also swag.